Hello and welcome to Learning with Lulu. In today's video we are going to be doing a summary of chapter 23 in Jane Eyre. So chapter 23 is a wonderful, beautiful chapter. It's a highly quotable chapter. It's great. It's beautiful. So in chapter 23, Jane has been back home at Thornfield for about 2 weeks, and she goes out to the gardens, and there she encounters Mr. Rochester. And Rochester essentially says, hey, why don't you walk with me and we can talk and spend this time together. And Rochester tells Jane that he has decided to marry Blanche Ingram, that he has already found another job for her so that she doesn't have to advertise or, try and find the job herself. He says, I've already got a job for you, and it's in Ireland. For Jane, it's kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back. She doesn't want to be that far away from Rochester, so she's very upset, and she tells him as much. She says, I can't be that far away from you. And so to continue this conversation, there's this big, beautiful chestnut tree, and they sit beneath it. And Rochester just says, this is what's happening, and it isn't easy for me either. And it's in this scene where we get the lovely little quote about how he feels connected to her. And he says, because he said, I sometimes have a queer feeling with regard to you, especially when you are near me, as now. It is as if I had a string somewhere under my left ribs, so where the heart is located, tightly and inextricably knotted to a similar string situated in the corresponding quarter of your little frame. And if that boisterous channel and 200 miles or so of land come broad between us, I am afraid that cord of communion will be snapped, and then I'm a nervous notion I should take to bleeding inwardly. As for you, you'd forget me. And that sets Jane off, and she's crying at this point because she's so overcome with emotion that this one place that has felt like her home is about to be torn away from her, or she's about to be torn away from it. So Jane finally confesses her love for Rochester, and in a surprising turn of events, Rochester asks her to be his wife. And it's this very powerful, passionate, moving scene. And Jane doesn't believe him. She thinks that he is mocking her, that he is teasing her, almost kind of poking fun at her own feelings. And we find out in the chapter he's not. He is very sincere, and he genuinely wants Jane as his wife because he feels that they are equals and companions. There's also a line in the chapter where Jane says that if she had any amount of wealth, where she says an ounce of beauty, I would make it as hard for you to leave me as it is now for me to leave you. Okay, so she says, do you think I can stay to become nothing to you? Do you think I am an automaton, a machine without feelings, and can bear to have my morsel of bread snatched from my lips and my drop of living water dashed from my cup? Do you think because I am poor, obscure, plain, and little, I am soulless and heartless? You think wrong. I have as much soul as you, and full as much heart. And if God had gifted me with some beauty and much wealth, I should have made it as hard for you to leave me as it is now for me to leave you. I am not talking to you through the medium of custom, conventionalities, nor even of mortal flesh. It is my spirit that addresses your spirit, just as if we had passed through the grave and we stood at God's feet, equal as we are. And then Rochester says, as we are. She is not understanding that he wants her to stay. And she's saying, you've told me I need to go to Ireland. And he says, Jane, be still. Don't struggle so, like a wild, frantic bird that is rending its own plumage in its desperation. And here she says, I am no bird, and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will, which I now exert to leave you. And so, yes, he asks her to marry him, and it's this very sweet scene. In this scene, a storm is coming on, kind of brewing as all of this is happening. I'm trying to think if there's anything else important. Rochester, he mentions that he kind of just brought Blanche around to make Jane a little jealous, and not, I guess it's kind of manipulative. I also kind of see it as a way of him not feeling like he could ask her outright, but almost to create circumstances where he could find out what her feelings were for him. Because he already knew that he was seeing this pure, sweet, beautiful woman, and because of whatever, he felt like he needed to kind of, I guess, manipulate the situation. So Jane accepts the proposal. This storm really breaks out and they have to run back to Thornfield. They kiss, of course, and when they're nearing Thornfield, Jane sees that Mrs. Fairfax has seen their, like, interaction. Not the whole proposal, but just that they are clearly kissing and acting in love. Mrs. Fairfax just looks a little uncomfortably surprised. The chapter ends. We find out that in the night, a bolt of lightning from this storm split the chestnut tree in two. The very chestnut tree under which they had been sitting when all of that went down. So that's chapter 23 of Jane Eyre. Again, it's a really beautiful chapter. If you don't read any other chapter in this book, I would suggest going and reading this one, because it's really beautifully worded, and the text just comes across as so heartfelt. Anyway, I hope this video comes in beneficial to you. If it has, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And finally, make sure to share this with any friends or classmates that you know may benefit from getting a chapter summary or chapter summaries, as there's a whole playlist of these, from Jane Eyre. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you back around, and bye.